listening to the version 4 podcast. Actually, I guess this is the version 4 Doctrine segment. In this is a new part of my channel, and I think that going forward, I think it's going to be a more active one. So I bring on a lot of guests, predominantly writers and philosophers and esoterists of the sort, and because of the specificity of their specialties, and that's redundant, because of how unique their perspectives are, I've been told by several listeners that it's hard for the uninitiated to understand what's going on. And for the most part, I'm okay with that, but there are some topics that I think that should be mentioned if you're going to have a full understanding of what I'm trying to get at with this podcast. So, first and foremost, the concept of the individual and its subsequent death, I think, is pivotal to understand any of my guests and to understand why I'm choosing them to begin with. So, if you consider human history as being phases, right, paradigms, right, generally it's accepted that, when we were nomadic men, it was in the tribe. That was the animistic period, right? There was spirits were seen in all living things for the most part. Then, with the advent of the written word, we moved from a language paradigm to a written paradigm. This concentrated power, took power away from the old, and it concentrated power into the literate, right? This is when you get your religious scriptures, holy books, etc. And the beginning of what becomes bureaucracy. After the invention of the printing press, society restructures again, and God moves from being the pivotal metaphysical principle driving reality, and it transfers to the individual. The reason why Descartes is considered to be, it's not just considered to be a shitposter, and it's considered to be somewhat of note, is he kind of, in his meditations, he, said famously, did the cogito ergo sum, or I think therefore I am, and as a consequence, and that was kind of used as the metaphysical, the basis for what became individualism. This is also this was made possible due to the printing press and mass literacy. This is also the underlying principle behind the Protestant Revolution, right? And as a consequence of this, as we all know, we end up with industrial society, and here we are, right? Well, following the same logic, we have made it to the internet age. The internet is another paradigm shift in information technology, and it takes the power away from centralized mass media authority, and it makes it decentralized, right? This decentralization, just like in all the other previous paradigms, comes with a shift in the metaphysical backing of society. Okay? So, just to reiterate, we start with the tribe, and spirits are everywhere. Nature in the survival of the tribe is the metaphysical engine. We move to literate society, and then we have God. We move to industrial society, and we have the individual. And as Deleuze pointed out, the individual has been splintered. There's no longer a cohesive individual. It's rhizomatic, or as they would say, and we now have what is more accurate to say, we have the divisual, removing the in, the solo, the unified self, and you've created the splintered, the schizo, whatever, right? This is the metaphysical basis for the internet. Now, well, not exactly. So it's not that the individual itself is the basis, it's that because there's no longer an individual, right? God's no longer inside your head. God has been moved, from being, inside your head, and is now repositioned in, the collective, if that makes sense. So effectively, you take your splintered selves, and you and other splintered selves interact, creating subcultures. In these online subcultures, this dance, this interplay creates events, creates mimetics, etc. And this is the new metaphysical engine of the internet. Now, this is a really heady way to say this, but we've all experienced this, and that's why we're all very online. Or I imagine those who listen to my podcast are very online people, right? So when you take that as your basis, you find yourself with people who you find yourself in a struggle, right? This struggle is seen most notably on Twitter, where you have the struggle between the face blue check, person, like individual account, versus the alt anime avi, what they would say like the incel account. This is a false dichotomy, because the blue checks, the face figs, and the like, these people who are still clinging to the idea of the individual will lose. It's just the nature of a paradigm shift. The alt, the schizo poster, the person who realizes that the subculture is above their individual self, because the individual self is no longer of power, that they are, they are those who've truly accepted being online. And they're also the ones who will receive attention, right? That's how the accounts grow. More interesting accounts attract more interesting people. That's not to say that individual accounts or celebrities or influencers cannot get big followings, but as everyone's also noticed, that these followings tend to have low engagement. They don't really generate anything of interest. They're kind of just drones. A lot of them act like NPCs, etc. Meanwhile, your an alt faceless account generating a subculture or an identity or ideology or what have you generates massive engagement, draws a lot of attention, and it is upstream from culture, or better yet, culture is downstream from these alt accounts. And it is for this reason that I bring on people like Mia and Vedic Cyber God and Zero HP Lovecraft. And I think everyone's experiencing this and realizing this is occurring on a intuitive level, and because of that, you see people trying to take down idols and take down individuals of worth, right? This is why you see politically identity politics, being the central theme of discourse, and the reason for that, while one can point to diversity or whatever, but that's just another side of the same exact coin, is people noticing that the individual is no longer unified, and because they lack a unified individual, they're trying to grasp onto something, some part of identity that is tangible and real. So you end up with feminism, you end up with Wignat or white nationalist identities, you end up with Hotep, etc., right? And there is a reality to race and gender, and that is the appeal specifically behind creating ideologies that are focused in identity, focused in the individual, but latch onto the empirical reality of sex and race or what have you, right? And this is not to say that they don't have some points. I understand people have their own perspectives, but this is the point of this is why this is occurring. And yeah, so my channel, for the most part, and I've noticed that everyone I've brought on is firmly in post post-humanists for them. So, yeah, I don't know how to end this.